We're very delighted to be here today. I'm Norina, like Raz introduced me already, but I also have Johannes with me. Johannes, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Always a pleasure to join the Power Community events. We've prepared an awesome lot about document automation for you today. And yeah, like Raz said, it's of course the collaborative aspect of, for example, generating your quotes in Dynamics or automating PowerPoints in SharePoint. So a lot of different scenarios that we've prepared for you today. But probably we should check what Raz meant when he said there's somebody in the presentation that you might know.
Yes, exactly. So we're actually part of the Power community for a long time now, and already when it was still in person, as you can see on those pictures. And when you look at the pictures, you see something in common, and there's usually a Lego set to win when there's Docs 42. So that's what we're going to do today as well. We have a Lego camper van here for you. And if you scan the QR code or the link, I will post it in just a second, you can actually win this beauty and we will send it to you right to your doorstep. What you have to do in the quiz is actually answer some questions about Docs 42, and how you can do that, Johannes is gonna explain in a second, because we have an awesome lot planned for you today.
Yes, exactly. And before jumping into the actual agenda, so next time we should probably include who this guy is. Raz, do you know who that is?
All I know is that he's from the dark side.
Yeah. Yeah, for us, it depends. Sometimes it's the Sith, sometimes may the Force be with you. But in any case, the events are always great fun. So regarding the agenda, yeah, like we said, it's going to be a lot about the intro to document automation. What's the purpose behind it? What are the challenges? And of course, if you do it right, how can it make life, your organization's life, a lot easier? We will have you see the benefits of Docs 42 just a little bit. It will not be too producty today. So that just read that. So if I look this direction, I'm actually looking into the chat. It was the same last in-person event for us too. So in London back in the days. But we've prepared a lot of live demos for you as well. So the HR documents, there will be an extensive live demo around the involvement of SharePoint, of Teams, and of course Power Apps. So how to trigger the best and combine all of this. We will see the template design in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We will also show you an example of the perfect collaboration where Dynamics would be the instance calling the document, a quote, but still you have the collaborative aspect in SharePoint and in Teams. Yeah, and finance and operations, we might not be able to make it today, but it's kind of the same principle, and just very important for us to know that there's also an integration for us from the document automation in F&O. The Q&A is, well, in the agenda in the end, but of course, feel free to ask anytime. I will just open the chat on my left-hand side so I can see all your questions, and in case they would be in combination with something that we can do in the live demo right away, we'd be happy to do so. All right, let's get started. First question to you. Do you already know Docs 42? So if you could just briefly put out your phones, scan this. I will show my forms in a second, because it's always very important also for us to know whether you've already seen us somewhere. Stuart, if you answer this, you should probably say yes, because then we've been at the same in-person event last time. Let me just move forms over here. And already getting the first responses. Just a second. So there's the QR code again to be scanned. We have a happy Docs 42 customer. Nice. Don't know. From the Power community, great. So it's good for us to see that this is evolving, because this part has been quite big. In recent days, it now gets bigger, but we try to make it more known. And yeah, hopefully in the live demos, you will see what the benefits are. So thanks for your responses. We will do that again in a second. So keep on or stay with your phones just to be sure that you can do this again. What do we do? Document automation, right? And what are the challenges? Usually in an environmental collaborative system, you have a lot of different data sources and you want to have documents that ideally are combining all of those. And those documents can be anything from invoices, PowerPoints, emails, also some reports with automatic chartings, for example. All of this should be done automatically. And that's exactly what Docs42 does. So you can integrate a lot of different data sources, output into a lot of different options, and at the same time, yeah, have a business process that just works out of the box. I will just open Teams again with the chat in case there are any questions again. Right. So how do we see document creation in real business life? You probably know this from a lot of your organizations as well. In many cases, one of our biggest competitors, I'd say, is copy pasting. So we take the V703 and just copy paste, take the old errors. Takes a lot of time, is individual, but still not ideally in an actual business process, especially if you talk about the collaborative aspect. If you have the VBO macro expert in your organization, great for those that still have him. Usually it's a little bit of a dead end because there's that one person that knows those macros, but the rest doesn't. And again, in a collaborative aspect, you want to have a server-side automation. You want to integrate Power Automate, right? You want to have different data sources, and that's still a very limited way to get there. And for those of you who work in, for example, FinOps, or those that have a programmatic approach to document automation, that is also very painful because, of course, yeah, we need to program documents. Business units would need to translate IT, how those documents are created, designed, and at the end of the day, it's kind of a back and forth between business and IT, where ideally the document automation could be handled within the business departments if they design the documents themselves. And that's exactly the approach we'd like to take. So considering the business automation with documents, there's usually three groups involved, right? So we have IT, we have business, and we usually have marketing, as you want to have the CI. If there's any adaptations done quickly, done easily, but also optically perfect in the way it should be. From the IT side, if we consider the SharePoint, the Teams integration, the Dynamics data, you want that to be, of course, according to the processes, and ideally also data should be in those systems. And if you have the document automation set up perfectly in the way it's supposed to be, users will actually really use the data they have in the systems and keep them. Because, for example, if they do quotes and they generate the document based on whatever is in the system and they get it out of the box, they will do it in the system. If they do it in a Word document that they already built a couple of weeks ago, it will only be there. And this way you also keep, it's kind of a side effect of professional document automation, the data is correct in the system. Yeah, at the end of the day, having a flexible, powerful, intuitive option for document automation. Just looking at the time so that we have enough for the live demos. There is quite a lot of references that we have also on our homepage. We're not going into too much detail today because we want to show you the live demo as the core part for today. Just bearing in mind that we have around 450 customers. We work through partners. If you work with a service company that is looking at something like this with your customers, let us know. We should get in touch. If you, of course, have a scenario like this in your organization, also let us know. We can get you in touch with the right partner. Just one reference case, the only one I promised, but still, in terms of the way Docs42 is usually implemented with a customer, is that it's not only focused on a technology and not focused on just one project. And that's, I think, in terms of a sustainable software investment, a very important part, that you have a tool that is the niche of document automation. You can use it in different input scenarios, but also for different output scenarios. And at the end of the day, that service is flexibly integrated into all of your collaborative business processes. That's the way the designer looks. So on the left-hand side, you see the Word add-in. We have those in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, where you can integrate all of the different data sources. And as you see there, the user, the designing user, is getting a what you see, what you get experience, where you even have the option to generate the document locally at all times, that you later will see on the server side. There's a drag and drop experience, in this case of SQL data, which could be SharePoint data, which could be finance and operations data, could be Dynamics CE or field service data, and all of them as a drag and drop experience for the business users. So not any programming skills are required for this, as you see there. One very important slide in terms of the data sources. First of all, that's all the data sources we can integrate. You see there Dataverse, of course, as a very important next level in terms of the data in the Microsoft ecosystem. But at the same time, there's the others. And very importantly, you can combine those. So let's say you have something like a quote coming from Dynamics CE, and at the same time, you want to have your text modules maintained in SharePoint. That's something you can do. And we will later see in a quote scenario. Let's just have the idea in mind that a quote is a complex quote where more people would work on that. And modules of that quote would be in a Teams library, like a SharePoint library in Teams. You can maintain it there. And later on, when you generate the document from CE, it will take those because they belong to that quote. And at the same time, take the data from Dynamics CE. And so kind of like a collaborative aspect to all of these systems and integrate all of them into one document. We can focus during the live demos on the technologies we see here and take more or less time depending on what you're interested in. Thank you, Norina. Just posted the link as well. So once again, the question to you, what technologies do you want to see? Well, what should we focus on? Like you see, we have done an agenda, but still we can focus on one or more a little deeper. So I will just show you that form again. Right, thanks. There are already questions coming in. One more responses. Perfect. Power Automate. Perfect. SharePoint, Teams, of course. Dynamics CEO. I thought there would be more from Dynamics CE to one from FinOps. Okay, digital signing. Also something we can include, but of course, yeah, makes sense in terms of the collaborative aspect today to have a lot of Teams integration, which we will do. And in the HR, it will be Teams, SharePoint, and Power Automate combined in the first step, and then we will later also include a Power App. So I think that makes sense in terms of the agenda in the live demos. Thanks again for joining the forum and the questions. Here's something you see in Teams, where in this case, this would be a quote scenario generated in Teams. And as it is then saved, for example, in the SharePoint library, also you can open it there. Or in this case, you see there is Word at the end of that PDF, which is Flow. It's just something we manually did there, added so that you see that it's something that's coming from Flow. But the integration is there with all of that. And you could also then, for example, send it out via DocuSign automatically. And in this case, even though we're using Power Automate, we're using Dynamics, and we're using SharePoint, the user will never, ever leave Teams. So that's, I think, another cool aspect of the new Microsoft ecosystem, that you can use those modules and not leave the application, stay in Teams. I promised you an input, kind of like a flower. Now there's a lot of flowers on the output. And well, most importantly there, you can open those in the format, either Office or PDFs, save them to SharePoint, save them into Teams, which of course behind is the save them to SharePoint, send those documents out via mail or sign them with DocuSign or Scribble. It's a Swiss digital signature software. Print, Like Ras said in the very beginning, there's still a few documents that get printed, but generally for us, it's very important that the document is part of a digital process, which is why we have all these output options of signing, saving them somewhere to the Dropbox. There is a DMS in Germany developed to those that know this one as well. And many more options. Azure Blob might be important to those that are technically interested in that. So at the end of the day, have a lot of options to get the data in, but also to put that document somewhere. And the service itself is independent from the application it's getting the data from, and it's saving the data too. So stay flexible in terms of what scenario you want to use. We have both the service in the cloud, which is Docs42 Online, and on-premise. If you're still looking into this, that's also perfectly fine just to have that here. And of course, document automation in many cases might be that there is a manual trigger where you, as, for example, a sales representative, want to generate the document. But as you see here, there's also many integrations into workflow tools that are out there on the market, as well as, of course, the Microsoft standards, which is something we will focus on as well today. So much for that input. Norina, can you show us what is it all about the HR documents in SharePoint Teams and Power Apps?
Yes, thank you very much for the input on Docs42, Johannes. And I'm going to start right with what Johannes showed on one slide with Teams integration. And I'm just going to share my screen. All right, you should see my screen now. Yes, I do. Perfect. So we're actually going to help out our HR department today, and we're going to hire a new employee. And in this case, I'm going to take Johannes again. So Johannes will be our new employee today. And we offer good salaries at Docs42. Yeah, well, we'll see. Johannes will be hired. I can choose the position actually here as a, what do you want to be? I want to be the trainee. Mm-hmm. Or sales manager. Oh, let's take the sales manager. I think that's fitting. And I can also, of course, add his email address. By now I know it by heart. And I could also edit details like the telephone number. And here is the interesting part, the salary. So, okay, the first year we're going to start with, I don't know, like 3,000. And I'm also going to do a special agreement. For example, Johannes gets a free lunch every day. Can I have a bike? And a bike. Yes. All right. So when I save this here, I have Johannes in the list now. And what happened in the background is actually flow was triggered and Johannes' contract was already generated for us automatically. So we can look here in our contract library and we will see, and it's refreshed. Not yet. It might take a couple of seconds, but what usually happens is that a new contract is added here to this library. We can tell Docs42 to save it to any library. And the other thing that actually happens is that an email is sent out. Yeah, now we see just now the contract was saved. And the other thing that happens is that an email is sent out. Yeah, perfect. To Johannes himself and also to Michaela, who is, for example, the responsible person in our HR department. And when we open this contract, let me just put it on here. We can see that all the information I just filled in is actually here. So Johannes' name is here. Down here we see his position as a sales manager, and then also his salary. Perfect. So that was actually the first use case. And of course, this is also visible on our SharePoint. So we see here Johannes was added as an employee. And you might have noticed that I forgot his last name. So sorry about that, Johannes. So I will just briefly add his last name.
No worries.
And every time something is changed here, the flow is triggered again, and the newest contract is actually uploaded in our contracts library. But Johannes will show another scenario in a bit. That's way cooler also. And what I can here do from SharePoint also directly is generate the document again. So I could open it as a PDF right away, or I could also send it as an email, open an email draft, or many of you ask about digital signage. That's of course also possible. So I could send it via DocuSign, or also if you want to edit the document, you could also save it as a Word. I'm just going to open it really quickly to show you that the data really changed, so that we're working here with live data. Perfect, so the contract is already here. And then we see, yes, it's updated, so Johannes has a last name now also in the contract. And this contract, again, will also be sent out to Johannes by email. All right, and now we're going to switch. This was now the user. So when you're in Teams, you're creating a document or editing documents. But now we're going to show how you actually edit the template. So for this employee contract, we actually used an Word document. And that's actually also saved on our SharePoint. So we can go into our Docs42 templates library and open up the templates. There are many templates that you can store here. And I'm just going to quickly open this. I just have to get my password really quickly. I have to log in here again. Perfect. So this is actually now the design part. So this is typically where the business user would design the template. And you see, you can actually work with standard Word functionalities here. So you can move everything. You can, for example, make this fat. You can really do anything you want with standard Word functionality. And the little blue fields here, you've also seen it in the presentation very shortly, are the Docs42 data fields. So when I double click this, actually the data field explorer pops up. And this is all the information I have on SharePoint. So I can just go here and drag and drop these fields into my document. And then once it's generated, it's populated with the data from SharePoint. And like Johannes said, it's all done without any programming. So when I click here, I see the Docs42 data map. And here you see all the data sources we have. And you can, like Johannes mentioned, combine them, mix them, so you're very flexible. You can use FO data, you can also use PC data or CE data, and yeah, anything you want. And I will just quickly show you how you can connect actually to the SharePoint data. So here is the connection to our SharePoint data. It's, like we said, done all without any programming. And I can also test my data here. So I can see if it's correctly connected and see, yes, Johannes is also already here. So these are the data sets I get from my data connection. All right, and I can, of course, also generate the document from here. So I can generate it through the server from SharePoint, which we've just seen, but I can also generate it here in the add-in. And I would take Johannes. Yeah, he's twice here, so I'm just going to go with that one, but we'll see if that's the correct one. And now all the data is inserted from SharePoint. And we can see here, yes, it's the sales manager. I just will view it side by side so you see the difference. So here you see the blue data field is now Johannes' name. And when we scroll down, you also see that all the information we entered is populated. And you can actually also, in the templates, of course, work with complex conditions, for example. So we see here, you will be provided with a mobile phone. This is actually based on his role. So if we would have selected that he's a trainee, he wouldn't have received a mobile phone, for example. And in the end, we also see, good, now we see it's the other Johannes, so not the one we just entered. But in the end, you can see we also have a whole document inserted here. So you can actually work with text blocks, and those can also be Docs42 documents. So they can always have the latest data or come with different data sources, and then you can just easily insert a whole document here. All right, Johannes, how about showing us how this could work in a mobile application or a Power App, actually?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to try if I can get my screen mirroring from the phone to work.
Yes.
Just a second. Only take a couple of more hours.
I just read the message that you're going to be a demanding employee.
Yes, do it. But you know what the good thing is about being in charge of that Power App, or at least having that Power App. I will start sharing my screen because if we now go here, this is just move Teams over here.
Yeah.
This is my phone, right? So as you see, I'm currently doing this, and in that Power App, I have my very own contract, so I can be even more demanding. To just go here, change the salary to hope nobody's looking. Let's double up. Still, here this is just the Power App. So basically the very same information we've already seen in that SharePoint list, I can now just edit here in that Power App on the fly with all the information available. And of course, again, clicking here on generate employee contract will help me generate the document, in this case, just from the actual app with the same principle that we've already seen and Marina has shown us. And if we once again go back to our SharePoint library. All right. Let's this time have a view in the browser. So we're actually in SharePoint. We're in the employees list. So the same we've already seen previously in our all contracts. You will see there is now a new flow contract, which again, of course, is the flow triggered from Power App that will output that very document into the SharePoint library directly, with again another option of that automated process. So like we've seen with Narina, there is the option for the manual generation with all the output options. There is the option with the flows based on any configurations that you have already in here. And speaking of the flows, I just briefly want to show you our currently soon hopefully ready premium connector, but there is a, well, we can send it to you if you're interested in, and it's a very simple one. When an item is modified or created, there will be the call here, as we've already seen multiple times, with some Docs42 options on this. Perfect. So let's close the mirroring then. Right, so we promised you that there will also be an integration with Dynamics, and that's the next scenario that I'd like to focus on. So there will be two that we do. The first one will be a quote scenario with the collaboration in Teams, and the second one will be a process based on an opportunity where that opportunity information will be sent to the customer, but also to a Teams channel. Right. Just opening. Natalie, regarding your question, this is the app is called A-Power, just a free one. All right, and let's have a look into that scenario. As you see here, standard dynamics, standard quotes with a lot of information about the actual quote, but also the collaborative aspect behind this, where we want to have a SharePoint library. And in that SharePoint library, let's just move this over here. In our Teams, there is a quote modules library in this case, where we have all the information that is connected to this very quote that you can edit here. And if we, for example, take what should we do? Let's take the project plan. So basically, the service in this case is not maintained in Dynamics directly, but it is maintained in here in an actual Excel. And there is a calculation based on the hours, based on the rate. And that's just, there will be also information for this. So the installation, as we know, will be quicker. So we can change this in here and do the calculations right away in that Excel. And of course, since we are within SharePoint, this is safe there and will be in our document in a second. Let's close this. Maybe let's also do some adjustments on the PowerPoint. So the scenario in this case would be that on site with the customer, there has been one of our technicians that showed them a connection plan in more detail, and it's the Solar Power Linux Pro, for example. It will then be integrated. Right, then within a process, all the employees know that this will now be sent out. And if we, for example, in this case now open up the same options similar to what we've seen in SharePoint, now in Dynamics, there is the easiest to start with. So just again, opening the PDF, of course, also the docx. So in a scenario where in 20% of those quotes, you still need to do some adjustments, you can generate the docx, save it to SharePoint Teams like we've seen, create draft emails, send them out directly or attach to an entity. So those that are working with CE a lot, you can have it in here as well. But now let's just generate the PDF for a second to see the adjustments we've done and if they already are in that very document. So that was downloaded. Let's just save them here. Right. So the top part goes a little side by side so we can actually see where the data is coming from. There it is. So the top part will be in the information also with an entity image from Dynamics in this case. That's one of the modules that we took from SharePoint, so the description. Then also in the prices per unit, we changed, I think, the hours to 15. Yeah, there we are. And that's there in the calculation as well as it is in Excel. That's the product repetition. So the scenario we've seen before was more like about texts and conditions in that very text. This time it's about the automation of a table, which is, of course, very common if you talk about quotes, invoices, for example. And then there is the last page where we did the Solar Deluxe Pro in the PowerPoint, which of course also gets integrated into this. So basically having that collaboration directly in in Teams, but also when you trigger it from SharePoint. Another one that we did in this one is if you change any of the information in here, like you changed, for example, the quantity, this will once again trigger a Power Automate, and well, a flow that is in Power Automate, and that will again save that document into SharePoint. And you've seen this now multiple times, but I think in terms of the story, it's very important to have this, that it doesn't matter which application you're using for the user, but you can use that and then use a flow, use, like we see, manual generation to basically have that all in your Microsoft ecosystem. That quote again, let's have a look into Teams, is of course part of our sales quotes, where probably is currently still running, but at the end of the day, basically those changes automatically save that document into that library, and do the same thing that we've before done in SharePoint directly. So once again, I'm doing it here. And of course, since the option is also to have the solar panels as the quote itself in Teams, I could just do the adjustments here, not leave Teams, and then switch to the library and have that document again in here. And once again, thinking about the collaborative aspect of this, where many people would be working on a very big or complex code, there you'd have that as well. Cool. So much for the code scenario. The template also could, of course, be here, like we see in the templates designer themes, where you have multiple libraries included. And one that we see here is, for example, the CRM sales templates. And without going into too much detail here, because it's very similar to what we've already seen with Narina, there again is the sales quotes. And even for opening and editing all of those, we could again open it from here directly, and then adjust the data that we already get from Dynamics. Opening on my second screen, I will then move that over in a second. All right. And in this case, with the difference that it's not SharePoint data sources, but it's going to be a lot of different Dynamics CE data sources. And just for the sake of seeing it, also the repeated table down here, that's what a repeated table looks in the design part. And if we generate, let's also have a look on what's going to happen with that very table. Very familiar document with, again, the repeated tables. And if we, again, move them side by side, we will see basically that's the template format to it, and that's the output, as we see with the repetitions there. Cool. So much for the quote scenario, as well as for the quote design. Let's have a look into something we haven't really seen before, which is PowerPoint in CE. So let's move to our opportunities. And there we would like to have the solar panels proposal. And in this case, the way it's integrated is if we send out this very quote via email. Let's just first generate it locally again, well, on the server, but to download it locally as a PowerPoint. Basically, very similar principle to before, but repetitions in those PowerPoints, also complexity that we have there as well. And if opening the document. I was just a little bit confused, that document, but it's for the other one. As you see here, for example, the products are repeated. That's fine, as well as there is a general overview. So again, many automation options in this. And as promised, if we click on send email here, we will be able to, of course, send that out to Michaela Mitarbeiter, who is our contact for that very account. But also at the same time, there is a sales teams channel where get this. Right. And let's just Okay, here again to our teams, in this case to the sales team. And well, the European time digit format, to those of you who are wondering what this is, but that's, as you see, my actual time, and it has the entire email included, as also a Word document that we designed for this very output. And I can either open it now locally to see how this looks as well. And also, of course, in here, like we see, the two have been the receivers of that very email, and as the attachment of that email, we of course also have that PowerPoint. If that's, for example, an option where you want to output the document not directly in a SharePoint library, but to send it out and basically CC to that Teams channel. Cool. The template, looking at the time, could have a quick look into this. So once again, the PowerPoint template in a SharePoint library. That's what's happened when you have a lot of different tabs open. But there is the Dynamics 365 SharePoint site where we have those for sales templates or CE templates. In here would be, for example, our account plan, also other options. Scroll down a little more. There's the proposal template, just to get a feeling on the PowerPoint integration. Right, and yeah, very familiar to what we've already seen, a couple of Word templates now, this time with PowerPoint. And if I again open this here, generate that document right away, it will then have the what you see is what you get experience locally again, with the option to again select a quote, for example. And we of course will take the solar panels proposal. Yeah, and that's the document we already got multiple times now, this case also locally. I think I'm basically complete with my live demo part. Marina, what lessons and what takeaways can we do from today?
Well, thank you very much, Johannes. One takeaway, you're a very demanding employee. But let me just share my screen. So, all right. Just let me change that. All right, so yeah, we've gone through the live demo, and what we learned today is definitely that you can really create intelligent and high quality documents with Docs42. So you've seen you can integrate pictures, you can integrate actually conditions, you can integrate whole other documents. So you're really not limited and can produce any document you want. And yeah, of course, that saves you also a lot of time, and also a lot of time in collaboration, because as you've seen, you receive everything automated also in Teams. So this is way easier for the team to really work on one document and also work on one template if you're staying in Teams. And yeah, I think you've seen the design is really basically Word, Excel, and PowerPoint functionality. So every business user can design his or hers documents themselves. So there's no need for programming. You can just edit the templates in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And of course, you stay very flexible, because as you've seen, you can integrate many different data sources into one document. So you can use your FO data and at the same time use data from SharePoint, Or also, as Johannes mentioned, we also have integrations in other systems. So it also works with SAP, for example. So you really stay flexible, and you also have the possibility to do your own output or input actions. And which goes very into the direction of the design part. You can easily adapt also your CE or also integrate your CE into your documents. So as mentioned, you can just go ahead and change the logo or change an advertisement, for example. This is very fast with Docs42. And last but not least, we're very flexible also to react to Microsoft and in general ERP trends. So as you've seen, we have a full integration with Power Apps and also Power Automate. So you can really react fast to any changes that are out there. And I think this is enough from our side for now. So I would like to hand it over to the audience and actually start with the Q&A. So are there any questions from the audience?
Thanks, Tom. Stuart, I think we should really meet in person at some point. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. There are no questions. I think we're gonna post the link once again for the raffle. Now that you've heard everything about Docs42, I think it should be easy for you to answer our questions. So if you go ahead and go to the Lego quiz, this should be very easy.
Yeah, we won't post the link.
And yeah, we're happy to meet you at one of the next events in September, for example, and also the ones that are coming up at the end of the year. And you can also always in between connect with us through LinkedIn or just head over to docs42.com, and that's where you actually have the chance to get a free trial license or ask for a personal online demo. So we can also show you our integration in finance and operations, for example, or in BC. So if that is something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to us at any time.
We won't post the link to the raffle, but here is our LinkedIn profiles also. Just check for yours, Marina. We are posting the latest Docs42 stuff there as well.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, Johannes and Irina. There is one question that often comes up, and that is how can people set up a trial or a demo if they want to play around with it?
That's a very good one. Let me just briefly share this. I hope it's not going to be too big because it's on my second screen, but it should be fine. On our homepage, there is a contact page up here. And then all you need to do is either you book a demo, request a free key. If you want to know the prices, get in touch with us. And this request a free key will automate a key that will be sent out to you. There is also very importantly, if you check out that one, that's the resources. If we have a look into Word here, there is the Docs42 class of the Word add-in, which even shows you how to download, how to get the free key, how to do basically everything to start also with our demo. I've posted the link in the chat. Generally, if you're looking into any kind of information about Docs42, this page is really nice, as you can look for whatever type you want to see, what technology you want to look into, if you want to have references, if you want to have sample templates. So thanks for the question, Russ. I hope it's answered.
Thank you once again. So that's great. So that was Johannes and Arena. Once again, thank you for that great presentation. Always a great pleasure. So we do have our keynote starting in 10 minutes with none other than Stuart. So obviously get yourself a hot drink, get yourself a coffee, because it's a very entertaining session. Very high energy. That'll give you a big boost. So I just want to thank Johannes and Arena again for this great session. We look forward to some of the other demonstrations you have lined up at the next boot camp for customer self-service, right? Customer self-service. So thanks for mentioning that. It's a great opportunity to mention that the next month's event is all focused on building customer self-service solutions using the Power Platform. So how can you build a kind of web application that allows your customers to manage and provide updates and manage their services and sales as well through your company? So that's all done through the Power Platform, and you will learn not only how to build chatbots and how to build customer self-service applications, but you'll also learn how to build a portal from scratch, right, using low-code Power Platform. So it's all very exciting, and we look forward to seeing you there as well, Narina and Johannes.
All right, thanks, guys. Good luck on your session, Stuart. And once again,
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.